like to talk a little bit here about some of the things that I did wrong when I was trying to learn meditation. And that was a long time ago. Um, and I'll try to make this a little bit humorous because otherwise it's just too depressing. Now, one thing I did wrong way back in the 1960s was to make up my own idea out of whole cloth of what meditation is. I mean, many people back then were learning to meditate or trying to meditate or said that they were meditating. It was kind of cool. And everyone else seemed to be making up their own idea as well. So we each had our own idea of meditation. And as I mentioned, these ideas were all over the board. There was no standardization. No one knew what I did in the privacy of my own meditation time. Probably not even me. It was only later that I was able to find out that other people, that most of us back then, did not know what we were doing and never had proper instruction. We just thought everyone else knew what they were doing, and so we're trying to go along. Maybe we learned it out of a book, or we went to one little session somewhere, or some teacher or some student like ourselves was showing how to do it. There were hundreds and hundreds of ways of relaxing, meditation therapy, guided meditation. In our own way, we're just trying to keep up with our own generation. It was only that when I began to meet some actual Buddhist practitioners, particularly for me it was Zen. Zen was the first thing I really encountered. I began to realize that these guys and gals, these folks really had a consistent idea and method of what they were doing. And so I kind of, at that point, stopped trotting out my ideas about meditation and presenting them just because I was forced to really take a good look at what I was doing and realized that I didn't know what I was doing. Certainly was getting no results to speak of. Anyway, my own private, supposedly ingenious ideas of meditation, the putting my mark on meditation, didn't last long around the real meditators. They knew what they were talking about, and I did not. Another thing that I've lived to regret was trying to go along back then with the idea that you had to meditate for long periods of time to get anywhere. It was the kind of the no pain, no gain approach. And that the pain of effort, of really trying, was actually good for you, that this would help your meditation. This was, I told, this was the approach. This approach was all the rage back in the early 70s, probably through the influence of Venerable Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who emphasized to his group long sitting times, hours, days, week-long sittings, month-long sittings. I never joined that group, but I knew enough of the group so that I would pick up the lingo and understand this is what they were doing, and I automatically assumed this is what I should do. But it really wasn't very good for me, forcing myself to meditate. All of that pushing too hard, all of that did was make me not like meditation, at least probably subconsciously at first, because I couldn't stand to look myself in the mirror and acknowledge that I just didn't like it. If we're kind of cool, you had to do a little bit of meditation. You knew something about meditation. I mean, if you're going to be, back then, a New Age person. And, I very much liked the idea of being a Dharma person. And so I tried to keep my hand in, but, pinching myself, hurting myself through forced effort it's never been my idea of a good time. Now, another, I think one of my worst habits was actually beginning to believe my own bullshit, all the stuff I made up or imagined. It was not done to be a liar. It was done in good faith. But I had no teacher. I had no real way of learning, and I was probably too shy or embarrassed just to admit. And I think everyone was like that. We didn't admit to each other that we didn't know what we're doing. Everyone is you're supposed to know what you're doing. So I promptly labeled myself pretty early on that what I was doing, I was meditating. And as I mentioned, everyone else did the same thing. And we seldom talked about what we actually did in meditation. It was kind of like a taboo topic. I mean, back then we weren't supposed to have any taboos, but that really was a taboo topic because you didn't pry into somebody else's meditation, and you didn't even ask, "Hey, what are you doing?" And most of all, I never asked myself what I was doing. That's how shy I was, or how taboo it was. For me, it was like a little bit like the confessional in my Catholic upbringing, going to confession. It was kind of secret. Anyway, in truth, what my meditation was, for the most part, was sitting there waiting until whatever time I had set to meditate had expired. I mean, all too often, all I was really doing was waiting to get out of there and get on with the rest of my day, because that was something that I looked forward to. But I really wouldn't admit to myself, although obviously I knew, that I didn't really look forward to my meditation time each day. I mean, for sure, I half-heartedly, because I didn't know how, tried to learn the basic technique of meditation, whatever that was in my mind. But mostly I was just daydreaming, totally lost in one thought or another. I even knew this was what I was doing, but somehow I must have thought that a little bit of meditation, whatever it was that I was doing, would somehow rub off from just sitting there. But not much ever did. And again, the reason was because I did not know how to meditate. I also did not know what kind of effort it really would take, or how hard I had to try. What I was supposed to be experiencing, meditation, was totally unknown to me. What is meditation? No one ever really asked that of me, including myself. I had no real idea about it, and I certainly had no experience with it, so as to what it was. And so my feeble efforts kind of got lost in the wide expanse of my daydreaming. It just went on and on. There I was sitting, kind of looking around, but mostly waiting for the meter to expire. When the Buddhists use the term turning the wheel, or turning of the wheel of the Dharma, they refer to the activity of the Buddha. But the Buddha pointed out that we each have to turn the wheel for ourselves. That's the whole idea of Buddhism, is that no one's going to enlighten us. We're going to have to do it ourselves. And so this was not like my Catholic upbringing, where supposedly Jesus could touch me on the forehead and a miracle could happen, and I would be saved or enlightened or whatever that Jesus' touch did. But Buddha makes it very clear in all his teachings that no one will ever just show up and enlighten me, or you. Not only will we wait forever, lifetime after lifetime is what they say, but the Buddhists claim we've already waited forever, that we are the stragglers, the last ones to get it, because enlightenment is a do-it-yourself project, and someday each of us has to do that, to enlighten ourselves. I mean, that's the whole point. Now, what the Buddha did point out, which is called the Dharma, his pointing out, his teachings, the method, he pointed out that we can each enlighten ourselves just as he did. Buddha was not a god or anything like that. He was someone exactly like us, and his teachings make it very clear that exactly what he started with, we have now and we start with. So he left us a method to do it. And that method is called, as I mentioned, the Dharma. It's a path that someday down the line we each have to enter. And it won't be a zap on the forehead. Because like I soon found out after, I have to say I sat for 30 years. Think about that for just a moment. And didn't get it, didn't do it right. So anyway, we can sit forever daydreaming. And apparently some of us, like myself, have been doing just that. And nothing will ever just happen, or very little anyway. So right there, that was a tough concept for me to get my mind around. Maybe I kind of liked delinquently sitting there, hoping someone would give me something, hoping I would get enlightened by something or someone, like somehow struck by enlightenment. But there was no such luck, at least in my case, because what I really was doing was the world owes me a living attitude, that something's out there that should be given to me, that should come to me, not something that I should do for myself. Anyway, for me, sooner or later, and for all of us, if you think about it, it's a case of pick up your bed, Lazarus, and walk. That sooner or later, someday, I actually had to get serious enough to practice the Dharma for real and in earnest. And I had to do it all by myself, and because I wanted to do it. Anyway, I sat there waiting for something to happen, for someone's responsible, someone to help me, to enlighten me from the outside. And I did that, I'm sorry to say, for something like 30 years, so imagine that. Maybe my own case is some kind of record. I can't believe that any of you watching this have ever sat that long and come up with so little results. Well, I did that, so maybe I should be in the Guinness Record book. Anyway, that's how much of a quick learner I am. And for the longest time, it took me till I first had to admit that I knew nothing about meditation. I mean, that's what I would have had to do to start. And back in the 70s, that was just not cool.